Skyrim is a land of untold riches. From the region's abundant mines which contain gold, ebony, and moonstone to the seemingly endless piles of gold that are just laying around in every chest, closet, and sack that can be found around the province. Yet upon closer examination into Skyrim and its people, you start to realize something's off. Like, how does anyone afford anything? The average Nord owns a house, a sword, and maybe like 12 wolf pelts. But where's that consistent income coming from? Are there salaries? I mean, the economy is all over the place. You can literally hire someone to fight and die for you for only 500 gold. That's not even enough to cover a piece of armor. And don't even get me started on the insanely ambiguous wages that the people of Skyrim receive. It's just impossible to understand, but we can try to make some things clearer. To do this and really understand the state of Skyrim's economy, we need to examine several of its components: the agricultural economy, the service economy, and the housing market. But before we begin looking at the various sectors of Skyrim's economy, we need to discuss the currency used in the province: gold coins, or septims. Septims are the main currency used across Tamriel, and are minted by the Empire. Somewhere. Honestly, it's kinda weird how we haven't seen a coin mint anywhere in the games, but whatever. Anyway, septims are the sole currency used by Skyrim's merchant, regardless of whether they're aligned with the Empire or not, so we have to determine how much one is worth. Originally, we were going to do a bit here where we used the sweet roll index to establish a baseline of sorts, so we could then calculate how many sweet rolls would be equal to a house or something. But then we actually looked at how much a sweet roll costs, and it's 2 septims, and you know, that's like a fair price. But then I wanted to see how much it costs to produce a sweet roll. With the Hearthfire DLC, you can bake your own sweet rolls using a chicken egg, butter, a pile of salt, a sack of flour, and a jug of milk. The issue is that the value of the materials required to bake a single sweet roll is 8 septims, which is 400% of the value of the sweet roll itself. Are we seeing the issue here? And that's without even considering the cost of the labor involved with baking the damn thing. This would mean that establishing a sweet roll business would literally be impossible unless you price your product at over 400% market price. Let's compare this with something near and dear to all of our hearts: a Big Mac. Estimates have been made on how much a single Big Mac costs to produce, minus the labor, and that estimate comes out to around $1. Meanwhile, the average price of a Big Mac in the US as of 2024 is around $5.60. Meaning that in Skyrim, if you invest 8 septims into making a sweet roll and sell it for 2, you're losing 75% of the cost price, while McDonald's makes 460% profit on its burgers. The merchants of Skyrim need to step up their game because ain't nobody starting a business in this economy. Okay, wait, what was the point of this tangent? Oh yeah, right, sweet roll index. Okay, so since that won't work, we need some other way to determine the value of a septim. And there's actually one other question that needs to be answered first. What kind of currency even is a septim? So you may be wondering what I mean by that, and I'll explain. Basically, we have to determine whether a septim is a fiat currency or a commodity currency. Fiat currency, if you didn't know, is the same type of currency as the euro or dollar or basically every other modern currency. Its value is prescribed by banks, government institutions, and the faith that the people who use it have in its value. There's no actual reason a $100 bill is worth $100, it just is worth that because of supply and demand and the market. Of course, that's a grossly simplified explanation, but we've never taken economics, and come on, we're talking about money in Skyrim. Let's move on. Anyway, the other type of currency that septims could be is what's known as a commodity currency. Commodity currencies, unlike fiat currencies, are worth what they're worth because the currency is literally made out of a valuable commodity, like gold for example. Basically, every ancient civilization used some form of commodity currency, including ancient Rome, which is what the Septim Empire is based on. Now, ancient Rome, unlike the Empire in Tamriel, used more than just basic gold coins. They had silver coins, bronze coins, and a bunch of others that were minted in different denominations. The value of such currency is determined by the value of the metal it's made of. So, as mentioned earlier, in Skyrim, it's gold. And what I was going to do originally is I was going to check whether the septim is a commodity currency by checking whether the cost of a gold ingot remained consistent across 2 games. In Skyrim, for example, a gold ingot is worth 100 septims, while in Oblivion, an ingot is worth... they don't exist. Okay. So, they don't have gold ingots in Oblivion. That's fine. We don't need gold ingots for this. Gold nuggets will do. A gold nugget in Oblivion is worth 25 septims, 1/4 of an ingot in Skyrim. Luckily, we can assume that an ingot in Skyrim is made up of 4 Oblivion nuggets, because the weight of a nugget is 0.25 pounds, while an ingot weighs 1 whole pound. Okay, finally, consistency. We did it. So now, not only do we know that a septim has stayed at a consistent value of 1/100th of a gold ingot over the span of 200 years, we can also assume that septims are a commodity currency. Thank Todd. So now that we have the knowledge of how a septim presumably works, we can now compare and contrast the costs of various items and services in Skyrim, beginning with the cost of agricultural items. So there are around 15 farms that you can discover in Skyrim that all grow a variety of crops. I went out there and took note of what crops are grown at each farms, and these are the results. The most common crop is wheat, which is grown at 10 of the 15 farms, then potatoes, which are grown at 9, cabbages at 8, leeks at 6, and gourds at 4. Honestly, a pretty logical distribution of crops. Now, if we look at the base price of these crops, we can see what's in higher demand in Skyrim, and unsurprisingly, go figure, it's wheat. It's actually kind of neat to see a somewhat sensible economy in this regard. The crop that has the highest value, and thus presumably the most demand, is also the one that's grown most commonly in the region. And it's no surprise that wheat is so common, because bread is a staple of Nord cuisine, and flour is needed for all those sweet rolls I mentioned earlier. In fact, if you look at the official Elder Scrolls cookbook, you'll notice that essentially every Nord dish includes bread in one form or another, not to mention the Nords' overall affinity for different braided loaves and such. Now, in a vacuum, the agricultural economy actually makes sense. None of the crops are absurdly expensive, and it's actually in line with what one would expect, considering that Skyrim's environment is not ideal for farming, and more importantly that it's in the midst of a very destructive civil war. Skyrim's agricultural economy isn't actually faring too poorly in this regard. But the second you actually compare the price of that food to literally anything else, things begin to fall apart a bit. For example, you would think that a bed at the Bannered Mare, an inn located in the city of Whiterun, a city at the center of Skyrim mind you, a central location for traders from all around the province and hell, even beyond, would be quite pricey. 30 septims at the least, the equivalent of 15 loaves of bread. But no, a room here costs a mere 10 septims per night. How? This makes absolutely no sense. I mean, I guess the inns just make most of their money through the food and beverages they offer? Okay, fine, we'll look past it, whatever. We're also going to ignore the fact that if the chef were to produce his own sweet rolls, then there's absolutely no way in hell he would be profiting, but whatever, moving forward, good enough. Now, if we take a look at another service offered in Skyrim, the carriage, it's priced kinda normally, honestly. It's 20 gold for a ride to a large city, which I guess makes sense because the roads to the largest cities are safer, and there's stables at the city for the drivers to do some upkeep on their steeds. But on the other hand, minor cities that may be in more peripheral locations cost 50 septims to get to. Now, all this actually makes sense. The drivers are risking a lot more traveling on the often bandit-controlled roads of Skyrim to those peripheral locations, and they also have to pay for their lodging, food, and stabling fees while on the road, and if they're on the road for a while, then it's gonna be more. So these prices actually make quite a bit of sense, and they seem to be in line with the prices of hotels and food in Skyrim, making them a little less ridiculous in this context. Alright, so now that we've established the value of a septim and taken a look at Skyrim's agriculture, which, shockingly, isn't completely insane, this seems like a good place to pause. The service economy is up next, and that's going to take a little while to research and establish some sort of baselines, since the sweet roll index didn't really work out for us. If you enjoyed this short little prologue and would like to see the continuation, please leave a comment, subscribe, and let me know in the comments, because these videos take quite a while to make. Sometimes. Anyway, we'll see you next time. Maybe.